And the session is Integrate Spirituality in Catholic High School Athletics. And I've called this a case for the barometer. So my name is Anne Stricherz. I am Assistant Athletic Director at St. Francis High School in Mountain View. Longtime fan, supporter, and participant of the CNAA. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday morning, right? Hopefully you folks are out of school. I don't know. Maybe I'll just allow everyone, since this is so nice, because I did some slides, and that's how I'm a very visual learner. And like it helps me to kind of plot information, and hopefully that will help you. So it might seem formal in that way, but I would really just love a conversation today about how maybe you've done or thought about just spirituality in high school sports. So let me just share maybe where we're at. St. Francis High School, we graduated Memorial Day weekend. So this should be the second week that we're out, but as you know, in high school sports, it's a different story. We have Central Coast section championships going on this week. I just got an email from my boss asking, hey, what nights are you free? And it's such a crazy time of year. Like I have, an anniversary dinner and something else on another night. And I'm sure he's just trying to piecemeal it through. My team, I coach a girls golf team. We're playing tomorrow down in Monterey. So as you all know, life doesn't stop. But maybe it's all the more important that we are intentional about spirituality because it's a long haul, right? So I don't know if anyone would like to just share their name, maybe where they're at school-wise, and what's going on in your school with sports.
I'll start. I am Maeve Ward. I am in my last week at Mercy High School in Burlingame, and I don't know where my future goes after that. But we actually have playoff softball and basketball tonight as well. So, and soccer, golf tomorrow as well. So, yeah, quite
and just
busy.
A second, buddy.
And I'm actually really excited. And I went to the Play Like a Champion conference 11 years ago, and I was really excited to bring this back to Mercy. And I guess somebody else will have to do it for me. So,
yeah. Pass that baton. Thanks, Maeve. And good luck in your next
Thank you.
venture.
Hello, my name is Lane Hawkins at St. Patrick, St. Vincent Catholic High School in Vallejo. Just looking forward to learning.
Awesome. Thanks, Lane. Welcome. Anyone else like to introduce themselves, share where they're at and what's going on with sports at your school?
I'll go. Hi, everyone. I'm Carolyn. I'm in San Francisco, kind of like just wandering around looking for games, hanging out at outfield fences and things like that. I'm not at a school right now, but still feeling the cadence of the school year. So good to be here with y'all.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's begin. I want to just kind of explain maybe the title that I have here, the case for the barometer. So my role at St. Francis is Assistant Athletic Director for Mission and Engagement. So in particular with, the regular duties and tasks of an athletic director, all of the details. In particular, I work with our coaches on formation and coaches, parents, and athletes. And that would mean, really the mission, we're a Holy Cross school, helping them understand what that means, and in particular, in a special way through sports. And I read this quote, and I don't have the formal quote, but you'll understand the idea here. It said, a good priest is like a barometer reading the temperature in the room. And I think that's really interesting because like a good priest would know in his parish kind of when to bring the energy up or down during the mass, like they're kind of called to read that or any sort of communal celebration. And I really think that's true for anyone in ministry. Pope Francis has said he wants, shepherds to, like bishops, to smell like sheep. That means because you're with the people. And so I think part of being a barometer is kind of being with the people and just kind of getting a sense of where their energy is and where they're at with things. And I would have to, it's really, I'm just going to be honest, I thought my job was really challenging this year because, we weren't necessarily together, but it was just hard to know, like coaches were just trying to get through the season, to make the season happen, to get it off the ground. And so it's not that like spirituality is, I never want it to feel like one more thing, one more box to check, like a force. I wanted it to be kind of really a reflection of where they were at. So reading this room, is it stormy? Is it dry? It was just at times very difficult, but I think it's also really important. We don't want to just like, we weren't going to have teams obviously do a retreat or, service work when they're just trying to get on the field safely and participate in a way that people were comfortable with, acknowledging protocols and rules. Hopefully that kind of makes sense for folks. The other way I kind of thought about it is, so I'm a huge golf fan, I'm a golfer, and I'm a golf coach. I really talked a lot about is reading the greens. I think this is a fair analogy if you want to just play it out with me for a minute. But one of the ways that you can read a green in golf is it's a method called aim point. And I was at the Women's US Open the last week. It was really fun to see up in San Francisco, the best female golfers in the world. And Michelle Wee West was there. And she uses this aim point method. And what it is you read it with your feet, and the foot like feel on the course gives you a read. And then you use your finger, like, so to speak, with the pin in order to determine which way the putt is going to break. And this is her quote. She says, there's a lot of optical illusions on the course. You can't always trust your eye. And for example, at the Olympic Club where it's played, it's on the side of a hill. So like the green may look one way, but it like might look flat, but it still breaks. And so that's where this technique comes in. You let your feet feel, and that will determine how to execute. And she's not the only person that uses it. A number of golfers use it for maybe like the last 10 years. But it's just a different way of trusting what you are called to see. So we see, obviously with our eyes, but we can also feel things out. And so reading it with your feet gives a different sort of like amount of information. And again, I kind of thought that was important in ministry. So what I see, but also what I feel are equally important as we kind of go through this. And so, just a couple of things, like a question for this group is, what might young people need spiritually that we can offer through and in sports right now? Because I don't know that we can forecast the barometric pressure in August. I think that's asking a lot. So I'm going to offer a couple suggestions of what I think people might, when I read the greens, what they need. But does anyone have any thoughts on maybe this idea or what you have felt like young people might be needing through athletics right now, in light of, where we're at? We're in a new place.
The one thing that I would say is connection. We've seen here is how, because of the kids were able to come out of the house and be connected, that they were more willing to come out, where it was fighting to get into practice before. Now it was, okay, guys, we've had enough practice. You guys can go have a day off. They're like, no, coach, let's keep going. So the connection was real big. So I think that's going to continue for next year or so.
Yeah, agreed. Other thoughts? I'm going to just minimize this one screen here. I was really struck. I enjoyed coaching so much more this year. And I've talked to a number of coaches, and I don't know if you've talked to coaches about this. I think in part it was because it was a regular group of students that I was able to see. Some of the requirements, like I usually transport kids, and that's a big part of just being on a team is the shared transportation. So while we miss that, just the regular contact with students with my team, in a setting that was maybe less, structured than the classroom, it was a real gift for me. So maybe for coaches, they needed coaching more than they thought for that connection, to your point. So here were a couple of ideas of things that I thought young people might need that we can offer through sports. The first thing I'm going to talk about is ritual. The next one is experiences of prayer. Another one is a reminder of Thanksgiving. Continued conversations on race, justice, and equity, and fellowship. So let's see how these play out. Sorry, I'm going to just bring up this little screen a little bit more. There we go. Okay. Okay, so this is an article I'd like to reference. It's called "What Coronavirus Taught Us." And it's from America Magazine 2021. I thought it was very thoughtful. It's like maybe, here's the article. It's like probably 20 different respondents, different leaders kind of in the church, from, catechists to young adult ministers to maybe parish administrators. And one of the ones that kind of struck me that I think relates to athletics is the need for ritual. And so this quote I thought was really important. And I just need to minimize this screen again. Sorry, people. Okay. After the breathtaking toll of COVID-19, one of the pandemic's greatest casualties has been ritual. Okay. From the rites of passage to the practices that order our day, the pandemic has corroded our sense of time and meaning. And then it goes on to say rituals are the language of community. And I really loved that. Rituals are the language of community, because I thought about the timing of this experience. And so for our freshmen, they didn't necessarily have the familiarity with the languages of our school communities. For sophomores, they had, maybe 2/3 of the year of it. For our juniors and seniors, they missed out on that latter part. And I don't want, high school is not that long. It's a 4-year period, right? It's a 4-year window. I don't want our students graduating without those rituals that we can offer. So the question for us is, what is the language your community speaks? Meaning, what are the rituals that you have in your school? And in particular, which ones does athletics host? So if a student is part of the athletic program, they would really know the language of your community through that. And the first one that I was able to name is the blessing of in-season athletes. So in the past, this has been something that we've just done in the fall and in the spring. But in my role, I said, well, it should really be in-season athletes. So that means you have a fall season, a winter, and a spring season. And as you can kind of just see from this photo here, it's not like labor intensive. This is the center of our campus. There's the statue of the Holy Family. I don't know what that would be, a natural gathering place at your school community. It's on a weekday morning, and it's promoted by all the coaches and all athletes, freshmen, JV, and varsity attend. But it is sort of formal in that there's this blessing. A student offers a brief reflection on his or her experience as an athlete in the school. Father Tony, has a kind of like a little bit of a formal reflection, and then each student comes up and gets a blessing. And I really love it, because I think, young people can see that they're part of something that's bigger than themselves. And each team is, supposed to stand by their teammates, which would naturally happen. But it's just kind of a nice way to start the day. And it's recognized and named again for each year. It's like kind of a rite of passage for that year. So I like that ritual. The next one I want to just talk about is the NLI ceremony. So this is really important, as we know, in the marketing of our school and for our athletes, and students love the NLI ceremony. And this isn't without, I think it's important to ask questions, and we're asking the question. I'm not going to offer any solutions here. But, it's something that the question would be, is it for parent, is it for the athlete? Is it for the parent? Is it for the program? Even in this year, we were able to have it. We had it for each season. We try to be intentional about how we do it. It's obviously a marketing opportunity for a high school, athletics program, but it's something that we're kind of considering, like, it's just a small, in terms of like, it's not a lot of time, and maybe it's really just about the photo op for the student. So for this year, we had, students with their parents, and we really kept the social distancing. Students had masks on minus the program, but, it wasn't open for anyone to attend. It was really just for the students and the parents this year, given that we were, facing restrictions. This is a former year. You can see the other group. How do we feel about our NLI ceremony? I don't know. I haven't been around long enough to know that this is something we're proud of how we do it. We could do better. It's just something that the athletic director has asked me to just kind of think a little bit more about. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts or input on this ritual, because I think it is a ritual. It's something that occurs 3 times a year. It's something that students certainly show up for, again, and they invite their families to. We've thought about when's the best time to have it. Like if your parent is working, like trying to just make it also equitable, inclusive, like maybe not all parents are able to leave during the day in order to attend. These are the questions we're asking on our end, but if anyone has any thoughts on or input on that, it's not necessarily a spiritual event, but it's certainly something that we're offering through athletics.
Hey, Anne, what is NLI? I know what is, but what is NLI?
Thank you, sorry. National Letter of Intent.
Oh,
so
gotcha.
When a student is going to play, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are, getting a scholarship, or that they are, going to a D1 program. It could be D1 through D3 that they are going to play. It's, when I was at St. Ignatius, one of the tensions, for example, was that sometimes we would have rowers who did not row for St. Ignatius, but they would row at, their rowing place. And we're like, well, you're not in part of the school ceremony because you chose not to row at St. Ignatius. So it was an opportunity for St. Ignatius to say, you're part of this school's athletic programs. And I think it's great that you are rowing, in college, but it's kind of like an opportunity to speak about how, if we really think we're forming young people through our athletics, which we do, then, your own program can have its own NLI ceremony, so to speak. So
yeah, thank you.
The both and in that way. Hey, Jolene.
Hi, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Sorry, I was on another.
Yes, welcome.
Yeah, I was on another Zoom also this morning, so I'm off now. I think so. Obviously, as a role as a commissioner, I'm removed from NLIs, but at my former school, we looked at it as a huge opportunity for ministry, because you have parents, grandparents, other students, club coaches, media, that this might be the only place they hear the gospel message. So we made a point of sharing the gospel message as part of our NLI ceremony and praying with athletes at the end, because a lot of people want to say that NLI is all about, like you said, the college scholarship and stuff, but it's about, like what you're saying, along the same lines of marketing. What are you marketing of your school? Are you marketing your high level athletes? Are you marketing that you're a Catholic institution? And so we always talked about that at my former school, that this was, this might be the one place, not to pick on, a club coach may ever hear a prayer or a, come to Jesus. And it was nothing like, an altar call or anything like that, but just through your words and actions, from the athletic director all the way to the coaches, we challenged our coaches to understand that this was for the student athletes, but also, to be honest, it's for all the people that are sitting in that room. And I think that's a huge ministry opportunity that's missed if you don't look at it through the Catholic school lens.
Yeah. So are you saying, Jolene, like, are you authoring the prayer? Are you asking a student to read it that day? I'm just kind of curious, like, what do you think kind of worked or what was meaningful for, on your leadership side, you feel like that you offered in this?
So we did it both ways. It depended on the student athlete signing, right? You have to kind of know who your student athletes are. If it's somebody so we always had them stand up and share and thank their families, right? So we met with them ahead of time before everybody walked in. And one of the things, their first important role was to thank anybody in attendance. So especially if a club coach took a time out of their day to come over, a lot of them, we would, junior high teachers and stuff would show up. So we would have, over time, like you said, it did get kind of big. But then we would ask, either a student athlete to do it, or the other thing I did was I had different faculty. And so a student athlete could invite a faculty member that was his or her mentor. A lot of times, I don't know at different schools, but a lot of my schools have an athletic advisor in the counseling department that their main role, so they're a counselor, but their main role is to help with athletics. And he prayed a lot, and he saw the big picture, right? And so part of it is finding that prayer, and there's some great ones I can send you guys and stuff, but just having people understand that, these are God's given talents. And so just getting away from kind of the mainstream of like, I did this and I earned this and I into this is a gift that was given to you. What are you going to do with it? And then we always had our president pray at the end. So the student athlete would lead, and then the president would pray at the end. And his prayer every time was, go out and change the world. Use your platform to change the world versus use your platform for yourself.
Love that. That's awesome. Thank you. Anyone else? A couple of examples here in the chat. Are anyone, so Carolyn asks, are any schools doing this in collaboration with campus ministry folks?
I'm just thinking about like everything, like the whole thing that athletic directors do, and how we get support in doing all of that.
I love that you asked the question. I think that might be really interesting, just to say, hey, in the future, attend. What do you see? What is an opportunity, right, for kind of just showing the mission and prayer and who we are through this event? I just think, getting their eyes and ears on that event, Carolyn, I think that's great. Thank you. I think that's a great suggestion. We certainly have not done that, but doesn't mean we couldn't. Okay. One of the things that I thought was really important as a ritual is the end of the year banquet. And we had this literally last night. But this is something I felt really strongly about. I think it's really important at the end of the year to bring coaches together in fellowship and just for a couple of things, just to say thank you. And, there was some ideas of, should we do this? When should we do it? How should we do it? And I'm sensitive to it because, we talk about being a community of coaches, but how does that happen is one of my questions. Like, we can say that, but what are the things that we're creating or hosting in order for a coach who may, or like, I'm not, an alum of the school, or I'm not a parent of the school. How do I enter into that community, right? What are ways that we could offer that? And also, just fellowship is one thing. So that's that community. And this is interesting because if we do an end of the year banquet right, it's also actually, believe it or not, a draw for somebody to want to coach. So for example, I was talking to Carrie, she was at Moreau Catholic for many years, and she's like, oh, there were times in the past where that was an event you wanted to be invited to. Like, that's what she said. Like, you want that invite. And it's so funny what like draws people in, like that they would, maybe like stay in coaching because they want to make sure that they get to that banquet, or what's the conversation around the, water cooler at school or whatever among your teacher coaches that they want to, again, be invited to that. Now, again, I was at St. Ignatius for 16 years, and that coaches banquet was a really big deal. We used to go to House of Prime Rib. It was, again, something that you wanted to be a part of. And it's so funny to me to think that that is something that could drive someone to stay into coaching. Now, there's always the plus minus side of that. For example, the first part of the banquet is, cocktail hour, or, some people aren't comfortable with that. I'm really sensitive to that. So what's a different way other than just having alcohol that you can make people feel comfortable? And these are small things, and it's not like it changes the world. But for example, last night we had cornhole, and it was super fun. There were a couple of other games. Like, we were like, really, we brought out spike ball, but one man brought his son, and that was just the way it had to work. So they were able to do that. And I'm glad we had just different ways for people to enter into this kind of space. Again, the point of it was to be together. And people were really happy to be together. And again, we were able to say thank you. We were able to recognize one coach who turned 80 years old in May, and he's still coaching. And how inspiring was that for everyone there to hear that Bob has 80 years young. And we asked, we have a milestone birthday. Can we tell everybody, Bob, how old you are? And he said, you bet, 80 years old. So I love an opportunity by which to say, formally, thank you, but also like, this is who we are. And, we gathered in prayer, we shared a meal. There was, again, some games, some different ways. And also just the conversations that happen between coaches, I think are really important. I looked at a couple of the tables, like some, you're always going to get those coaches that know each other, but there were other tables where like it drew different groups together. And I think that that's really wonderful. So anything that we can do to kind of cultivate that is, I think it's essential. So I'm glad that we had that end of the year banquet. I think it was a success. I think you can celebrate years of service. The end of the year is packed, right? I mean, people retire. There's all of the different award ceremonies. So some people are burnt, but for those of us who want to just show up, and I think I heard this the other day, it was like, availability is the best ability, meaning like if you avail yourself to something, that's such a great quality, right? And it's that whole just show up theory in life. So I was really impressed. We had 58 people say yes, and so it was pretty cool. I don't know if anyone else has thoughts on how they conclude their year among with their coaches, but this year we really wanted to do that because people had been working so hard. The other thing is, I think, it sounds weird to have ritualized fun, but I think it's really important to have fun. So we also had our coaches like golf outing. It was pretty exciting. We had 5 women for the first time. That was the most we've ever had. I'm a golfer. I'm also sensitive to this. Not everybody golfs. It's a really hard game. So I don't blame people when they just feel like it's not something that they're able to do. So one of the ideas, like we thought about maybe in the fall doing like bowling, and then at the end of the year doing golf. So again, just a way for, our coaches to come together to have fun. I think you can learn a lot about somebody just by how you compete and participate, if you're able to laugh at yourself. So those are 2 things that we have offered as a community to build a community of coaches. So I don't know if anyone else does other things in terms of ritualized fun, but I think it's important. Yes, one of our coaches, our basketball coach, is wearing like yellow knickers and a Suns jersey that was signed by Kevin Johnson. So you get that too, right? You need to have those just, crazy fun people that make a difference. Okay. I talked about experiences of prayer. This is going back to that barometer. One of the ideas was, okay, we had shortened seasons, as you know, March through now, we've had sports, and Michael just said, Anne, why don't you reach out to coaches and ask them, hey, I know you're not going to be doing a service project. I know you're not going to be doing a retreat, but if you want to talk about how we do prayer, I'm available. And nobody wanted to talk about prayer, so that's okay. And I think in this case, offering people just a simple resource is a great tool. And so this is the prayers for the St. Francis community. This prayer book is in every teacher's classroom. And I looked through it. We had this teacher who just retired. I called him our resident mystic. His name is Sal Chavez. He oversaw it. And he made this available for every coach. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, I wonder how many teachers ever opened that prayer book. I think it's quite possible that more opened it than we will ever know. And whether they opened it twice or used it every day, I think as a statement to our school community that we have this resource is really important. So if you don't know how you want to pray, you have something, right? So you have something, and it's good. The thing is, it's not like unrealistic. Some of the prayers are written by students. Some of them are formal prayers that we're familiar with. I am shocked that not everybody in our school knows the prayer of St. Francis. I think it's one of the best prayers there is. It's beautiful. So give it to them. So this summer, that's one of my tasks. I'm creating a coach's prayer book, and it will use many of the prayers that are in this St. Francis prayer book. So it's like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And then I'm going to include ones that I think, resonate with coaches. So we will be giving that at our fall retreat. If that was something that you would like to see once I, have it completed, I'm happy to share it with you. There's no shortage of resources on prayers for coaches. My goal is always to offer one that I think, where I don't know where you're at spiritually or comfortably leading prayer, but somebody could pick it up and say, yeah, I like that, or that speaks to me. And maybe there's 5 prayers in there that they want to use. So I want to offer that. But again, the barometer was kind of low on prayer. So we're going to go to what we know and what we can offer people. Thoughts, ideas?
It looks like St. Francis is playing with a basketball on that.
That would be awesome.
Or a bowling ball.
Cool. I think you kind of have to have fun with that. I mean, there was that one of Ignatius of Loyola during, March Madness. There's always so many Jesuit schools. Exactly. So they have him like holding a basketball. So
oh my gosh. A prayer book full of memes that students put in there. I think they would open that up for sure.
You got to draw it in. It could be a volleyball. I mean, it could be hang time for Francis of Assisi here. Totally. That's awesome. Okay. Reminders of Thanksgiving. So from our prayer, one of the easy prayers is just to say thank you to God and to, for our many blessings. And I want to share with you something that happened during the school year. So my boss, Michael's like, hey, Anne, I went to my mailbox today and there were all these handwritten thank you notes from the volleyball team. And he's like, just when I get really frustrated with their coach, then I get all these thank you notes. These were thank you notes that were written by the girls. They were handwritten, they were personal, and they just thanked us for the opportunity to participate this season, for the hard work that they knew that we were doing. And you guys, it was a shot in the arm. I'm telling you, I was like, so first of all, he told me about it and I thought he got it. And I thought, that's great, Michael, because you worked so hard. You deserve that. I went to my mailbox. There was like 5 of them as well. Some of the girls I knew, some of them I didn't. It didn't matter. They were handwritten. They were thoughtful thank you notes because they were, that specific. Thank you for this. I appreciate that. I don't I don't take for granted XYZ. I loved it. It was a really wonderful gesture. How he thought of it, it's not that hard to think of, but I want to just say as an idea, I don't think we should require people to do it. Maybe you disagree with that, but because it came from, this unexpected place, maybe it was just all the more meaningful. So worth sharing. I think it's important though, for young people to be able to say thank you and to recognize. And if we teach that, it's great. I say that because I read this really interesting article. So I just mentioned I was up at the US Women's Open up at the Olympic Club the last week. I was chair of junior volunteers, and it was great to have young people be able to volunteer. Although our volunteers were limited, obviously we were able to have fans. So everything was kind of scaled down. But I want to just introduce you to somebody named Mike Wan. He was the commissioner of the LPGA. The US Women's Open is actually a USGA event, so it's just kind of a governance issue. But the LPGA was obviously playing, and there were all these amateurs, and I don't know if you caught any of the stories, but one of the leaders on Saturday is a 17-year-old high school girl out of Homedale, New Jersey. She is committed to Stanford, not only for this year, but for the next year, and she was competing, and she was just really, it was a joy to watch her play. Some people don't know this, but about 10 years ago, the LPGA was kind of on life support. An analogy I might give it is like doubles in tennis. It just wasn't drawing in people. You know, it's out there, but people didn't really know a lot of names. You would know the same names over and over. They had decreased the number of tournaments from 34 to 24. Mike Wan takes over, and he did a couple of things. Number one is he really he knew the power of corporate sponsorships. So he would give the players a dossier of who the corporate sponsors were so that they could be aware to say thank you. Second, he encouraged the players to really be accessible and to take photos, offer autographs, you know, even on their competition days where maybe they don't want to because they're in the zone, but just to really kind of enhance that fan experience. And number three is he talked about the thank you note. And he said, you know, after the tournament, I really encourage you to write thank you notes to these sponsors. And sure enough, as a result, the LPGA, again, some great competition, some great golfers, but those are the three reasons that they say attendance started going up. With attendance going up, more television coverage, because with more sponsorship, sponsors saying, yeah, I want to sponsor this sport where the players are accessible, where the players recognize who we are and say thank you. I got a chance to meet him. He was in the crowd, and I said, hey, Mike Wan, you know, I've read about you. I teach about the power of a thank you note. And he is, no joke, he's holding a folder and he opens it up and he says, I have a couple of thank you notes right in here. And I thought, caught in the act. So pretty cool. And he will now be head of the USGA, United States Golf Association. He got promoted. So it's better for all of golf because, you know, the USGA oversees all of golf, but a loss for the LPGA, but a win for all of golf. So kind of a cool, you know, specific story on how thank you notes on the low level in terms of like what we do every day, but also on that high level can pay off. Okay, so kind of our last one that I've come up with in terms of those needs. I hope it doesn't go away. It can't go away. We have to have continued conversations on justice, equity, and inclusion. For example, this is our summer read for our coaches. We will have a book, you know, club chat in August. I author a coaches newsletter. It comes out once a month. In that newsletter are, you know, upcoming events, coaches' birthdays, prayers, but a section is always designated towards podcasts, articles, movies, anything that is focused on, again, information on justice, equity, and inclusion in sports. So it's intentional. It has to be offered. I think that is spiritually a hunger for our young people and for our coaches. So I don't know how other people are continuing this conversation in their communities, but would love to hear if anyone has. I think the barometer on that is we can't let it go dry. We need to keep, you know, that conversation going. Okay, so perfect timing. I just kind of wanted to conclude with, you talked about seeing in different ways, you know, sight is seeing with the eyes, vision is seeing with the mind, and I think also the heart. So the goal of integrating, I think, spirituality into our athletic programs is the ability to see where the needs are, and how you kind of determine that or ascertain what those needs are is really having those feet on the ground and offering ideas. But I think also just a conviction too that we can offer something. We offer the gospel, the living water. I think we have a moral obligation to really promote it, and celebrate it. It is a light, that we cannot hide. It's a joy to be able to offer it, and I think young people are really hungry for that. And so that just stands at the heart of my commitment to who we are and what we do. Sports is a really special way to do that.